I sold my house and gave my son $50,000. Then he banned me from Christmas dinner. I always thought the coldest winter I'd ever face was the one after Maria passed. That first December without her, the world felt unbearably quiet. The house we'd shared for 34 years was still full of her. Her scent on the pillowcases, her gardening gloves still resting on the back porch rail, the Christmas ornaments she'd labeled by year and memory tucked neatly in the attic. I couldn't bring myself to open a single box. So I didn't. Instead, I sold the house. Before we dive into all of this, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. Connecting with viewers across the world is a huge source of inspiration for us. It felt like tearing off a limb, but what was I holding on to? Maria was gone, and the home we'd built together was just a hollow structure without her laugh bouncing off the kitchen tiles or her humming drifting from the laundry room. I told myself it was time to simplify, to downsize, to move forward. The house sold quickly. A sweet young couple with a baby on the way fell in love with the wraparound porch and the cherry tree Maria had planted. I signed the papers with a lump in my throat and walked away with a check and a suitcase. And then, like any father who still wanted to feel useful in the world, I handed $50,000 of that check to my son, Michael. "For you and Isabella," I said. "Put it toward the house, something nice, something safe for the future." Michael looked stunned, grateful. "Isabella?" Well, she smiled the way someone smiles when they're already thinking about kitchen tiles and curtain fabric. "That's incredibly generous," she said, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite place. "We'll make the most of it." I believed her. I used the rest of the money to rent a modest condo near Riverside Park. Nothing fancy, but enough for one. Enough for me. And for a while, things were good. I'd come over on Sundays for dinner. I helped them with yard work. I even picked up their dog Baxter from the groomer when their work schedules got hectic. Isabella called me Pops with that bright cheer in her voice, and Michael would smile and say, "Dad, I don't know what we'd do without you." That was the first year. By year 2, the dinner invites slowed. Isabella was so busy with her consulting work. Michael had joined a new firm. They didn't really have time for Sunday meals. But there were birthdays. There was Thanksgiving. There was still Christmas. In year 3, Isabella redecorated the house. Granite countertops, a new refrigerator, a $7,000 chandelier in the foyer. I know because I helped her pick it up from the showroom while Michael was traveling for work. "We just want everything to be perfect," she told me. "The house has to reflect who we are now." I nodded. But I remember thinking, and who am I then? In year 4, I started getting fewer calls. Texts came in short bursts, if at all. I noticed I was being asked to do less, not because they didn't need me, but because they didn't want me around when company was over. Isabella would say things like, "We're hosting Michael's colleagues, so it's a little formal." Or, "My parents are coming into town, and they prefer things quiet." Once I overheard her tell a friend Dennis is a sweetheart, but he doesn't really mix well with our social circle. He's old school Spokane, whatever that meant. Still, I kept helping. I kept showing up. Groceries when they were sick, repairs when the dishwasher broke. Checks slipped under the door when Michael said work had been slow. I never asked for a thank you. Then year 5 arrived. A week before Christmas, I got a text from Isabella. "Hey Dennis, just a heads up that we're keeping Christmas small this year. Just immediate family." Hope you understand, I stared at my phone for a long time. Immediate family, I typed a response, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. I finally sent understood. Merry Christmas. I sat in my quiet condo that Christmas Eve, staring out at the snow falling over the street lamps. I had a frozen turkey pot pie in the oven and an old Bing Crosby record playing on the radio. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invited to my own family's holiday dinner. Not because I'd done something wrong, not because I couldn't make it, but because somewhere along the way I had become unnecessary, expendable. After all, I had given the house the money, the time, the help. I wasn't even worth a folding chair at the table. I told myself I didn't mind, that I was fine, that the quiet was peaceful. But I wasn't. Because somewhere between the granite countertops and the polite smiles, I had lost something I couldn't quite name. And that's when it began, the unraveling. Not of them, of me. Or at least the version of me who thought that love, loyalty, and generosity were always repaid in kind. I was wrong. But I wasn't done. Not yet. 3 days after that lonely Christmas Eve, I was halfway through my morning coffee when I nearly dropped the mug. There on page 3 of the Spokane Review was my face, gray-haired, slightly out of date, staring back at me under a headline that made my stomach turn. Local man abandons elderly relatives at airport in holiday storm. I read the headline twice, then the byline by Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor. And then I began to read the article. Slowly, line by line. Cody and Catherine Jenkins, prominent members of the local business community, were left stranded at Spokane International Airport on Christmas Eve, when family member Dennis Flores failed to pick them up as planned. It was freezing, Catherine Jenkins recalled. We waited over 4 hours, and he never even returned our calls. I clenched my jaw. 4 hours. It had been 52 degrees and sunny. At our age, that kind of neglect can be dangerous, said Cody Jenkins, retired bank executive. We were deeply hurt. We still are. Dangerous neglect. I read further. The article painted me as a mentally unstable, bitter old man, someone whose erratic behavior had been a growing concern to his family. It implied that I had snapped, that I had left 2 elderly people, both of whom were younger than me for the record, to freeze outside a regional airport because I was apparently unpredictable and cruel. There was no mention of the 5 years I'd spent funding their mortgage. No mention of the $50,000 I'd gifted for their down payment. No mention of the dozens of bills, renovations, groceries, and favors I'd quietly taken care of without so much as an "I owe you." Just the narrative they wanted Dennis Flores the villain. The unstable senior. The disposable old man. My hands were shaking, but not from shock. It was rage. And under that rage, something else stirred, not bitterness, not sadness, something far more dangerous. Clarity. This wasn't just a snub at Christmas. This was war. And they'd fired the first shot. I spent the next 2 days like a man possessed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't pace the room. I planned. Because they had made 3 critical mistakes. First, they thought I wouldn't fight back. Second, they went public, which meant I could go public. Third, they underestimated just how thorough I could be. I pulled out 5 years of records, meticulously kept, always filed habits from my construction business days. Receipts, bank transfers, home equity loan statements, credit card bills for the granite countertops, and imported tile Isabella had needed for her dream kitchen. I downloaded photos from Isabella's Facebook, the new deck they bragged about paid for by me. The expensive vacation to San Diego. During the same month, they told me they couldn't afford groceries, the matching Christmas pajamas for the whole family, a family I hadn't been invited to join. Even Baxter's new monogrammed dog bed. I remembered that charge too. $160. I printed it all, 12 copies, each in its own manila folder. And then I looked up Patricia Morrison, the lifestyle editor, 43. Washington State University, 15 years in local papers, no known banking connections. But her editor 3 shared connections with Cody Jenkins on LinkedIn, of course. He didn't just tell his side, he planted it. Like a banker planting rumors about a competitor. Like a man who'd spent his life learning how to destroy people quietly. It was almost impressive. But I'd spent my own life building things from nothing. I knew how to work with my hands and how to dig. and I was about to dig up everything. Isabella was proud of their hosting. She'd posted about the upcoming Christmas dinner online. Can't wait to host our closest family and friends, 12 guests. That meant 12 opportunities. 12 people who deserved to know the truth. So on the evening of December 24th, I put on my best suit, navy blue, the one I wore to Maria's funeral, and packed the folders into my briefcase. Not because I wanted a confrontation, but because they had slandered me publicly. Now, it was time for the truth to have its turn. Their house in Kendall Yards glowed like a Christmas postcard. I parked across the street and waited until I saw everyone seated inside. No one locked their doors in neighborhoods like this. I stepped inside quietly, as if entering a courtroom. And when I walked into that dining room, with 12 well-dressed guests and a turkey halfway carved, all eyes turned toward me. Cody paled. Catherine stiffened. Isabella dropped her wine glass. "Good evening," I said, setting my briefcase gently on the marble buffet. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Dennis," Isabella hissed, "this is completely inappropriate." "No," I replied calmly. "What's inappropriate is publishing a hit piece about me in the local paper while eating a meal paid for with my money." I began handing out folders. "One for each of you," I said. "Inside, you'll find 5 years' worth of financial statements, receipts, bank records, and social media posts showing exactly how much I've contributed to this household." No one spoke. Only the sound of paper flipping. I saw eyes widen, faces fall. A gasp from a silver-haired woman in pearls. "Isabella," someone asked, "you never mentioned he paid your mortgage?" She stammered. He offered. "It was never volunteered," I interjected. "Read the dates, read the memo lines, see the text messages attached to some of those checks. You'll see how many times I was asked and how rarely I was thanked." And then I pulled out the article, set it in front of them all. Marked in red ink were every falsehood, every distortion. "Let me tell you what really happened at that airport," I said. I told them about the disinvitation, about the too embarrassing comment Isabella had made to a friend, about Catherine's remarks about working-class conversation and how I'd lower the tone. I told them how I sat home alone on Christmas Eve, with a frozen dinner and Bing Crosby on the radio, while the people I'd supported celebrated without me, then painted me as unstable when I didn't show up to chauffeur them. And I ended with this, "You don't get to treat someone like they're nothing," and then be outraged when they walk away. The silence was deafening. Someone at the table whispered, "Unbelievable." Isabella tried one last time. "This is a private family matter." "No," I said. "It became public the moment you humiliated me in the newspaper. I deserve my voice too." I buttoned my coat, picked up my briefcase, and looked at the people around that table. "You've had your say. Now, you've had mine." And then I walked out into the cold December night for the first time in years, feeling warm inside. If you're still watching, comment 1, so I know you're still with me. The phone calls started the next day. Voicemails, texts, emails, Cody, Catherine, even Isabella. Some were apologetic, most were furious. But all of them had one thing in common: they were scared. I didn't reply to any of them, not because I was trying to be cruel, but because there was nothing left to say. I had said my piece. I had laid the truth bare. And for once, I let the silence speak for me. 2 weeks later, I ran into an old friend at the hardware store. Jim, a retired plumber who used to work construction jobs with me in the early 90s. He leaned on his cart and gave me a knowing smile. So he said, "I hear Christmas dinner at the Jenkins house was eventful." I just nodded. Word had gotten around. Not just the confrontation, not just the newspaper article and the takedown that followed. People were talking about the man who stood up for himself. People were talking about me not as a villain, not as a cautionary tale, but as someone who finally said,